Chronicles. I'm your host for October, K-Murdock, right here on thewordisbond.com, and I'm really excited to talk about another facet of my professional life, so to speak. Last week I started it off naturally with the thing that most of you guys know me from, which is, music and as a music producer. But, the thing that really got me into doing music was actually my love and my interest for radio. So much so that, it all starts back with me majoring in radio production while I was in college here in Washington, D.C., right here in the United States. Audio or radio production was my focus while I was in school, and I was blessed enough coming out of school to procure a job in radio, which, you talk to anybody who's in that major, in that field, especially now with the economy and stuff. It's a tough task. So I was very blessed at 21 coming out of school. I landed essentially my dream job, and I always compare it to, for those who know this movie, Big by Tom Hanks, where he was like the grown-up, the kid in the grown-up adult body, basically working at a toy, designing toys and getting paid for it. That's how I felt, when I scored my first big radio gig at XM Satellite Radio. But just to go back a little bit, people ask me, like, what got me into radio? Well, for me, it wasn't that hard. I grew up in a family that had ties to radio. My uncle, the late, great Melvin Lindsay, rest in peace, he was a very well-known radio jockey, and actually, just for history purposes, was one of the first hosts on BET. There used to be a show called Video Soul that my uncle would occasionally host along with another guy who's a legendary radio disc jockey named Donnie Simpson. But my uncle was a very well-known radio jock here in the DC area, here in the United States. And so I grew up basically every night before I go to sleep. My mom would have the radio on and my uncle would be on the radio. He is most known for creating the format that everyone calls the Quiet Storm format, which is basically the late night romantic slow jam kind of stuff, or as some people say, babies making babies music. That started with my uncle back in the late 70s while he was, on radio in college. So naturally, I tried to follow in his footsteps, but it was definitely a tough road, and my road in radio veered a little differently than his. I had dreams of being this real popular, smooth radio host, and I wound up actually getting more into the technical aspect, which led into doing, music production and stuff. So for that, I'm forever grateful. And it wound up being a blessing too, because getting my gig at XM Radio, which I worked at for almost 8 years, coming out of college, just by luck and circumstance, I wound up hosting a radio show, which I've been hosting now. Next year will mark a decade of me hosting the show Subsonic. For those who follow my blog, follow me, you always hear me talk about Subsonic. It's it's progressive hip hop, and I feel real proud about hosting that show, because I feel like there's not a lot of hip hop shows out there that play the artists that we do. And the dope thing was, the show when it was on air was exposing people, across the nation, because it was on XM Satellite Radio. And over almost a year ago, actually top of this year, we left the satellite service, but the show is back in full effect and coming to you guys on some real major platforms very, very soon. So stay on the listen out for that. But we've been still podcasting, and through XM, I've had the ability to in hosting Subsonic, to meet like any and every artist you can think of. For me, some personal highlights as far as being on radio and people I've met. Big Tribe Called Quest fan, big De La Soul fan, and eventually I had the opportunity to interview De La Soul as well as meet everyone in Tribe Called Quest. But it's funny because it wasn't together, it was always individually. Back in college, I met Jerobi. Then I met Ali Shaheed Muhammad. 2 years ago, I met Phife Dawg when he was in town, participating in a Jay Dilla tribute concert. And then last but not least, about a year and a half ago, I met Q-Tip when he had dropped the Renaissance album. So, I would rank that as the number one coolest moment in radio. But I must say, for me, my personal highlight of working in radio was the opportunity I had not to interview someone, but to actually produce a radio feature. And the person was for Quincy Jones. That's right, Quincy Delight Jones. aka the greatest of all time when it comes to music production. And if you don't believe me, the brother got Grammys for almost every genre of music you can think of. And now imagine me, I'm 24, 25 years old. I'm flying out on the company's dime, staying in a pretty smooth hotel, and basically I get to drive up to Beverly Hills, past Beverly Hills into Bel Air, like Fresh Prince of Bel Air. Quincy Jones lives high up in a really big ass house, a mansion up there. I'm chilling. I come in with my laptop, a microphone, and a mini Pro Tools setup. I basically sit down with him. It's me, him, and another guy asking him questions about any and every artist you can think of. And basically what we did was we took Quincy's talking and we just let him talk. Took it back to DC and put together some amazing content for specials that actually went on to win some awards. So for that, I'm forever like proud of that. But yeah, man, the Quincy Jones experience was amazing because, you know, I literally cite Quincy Jones as like one of my biggest influences. And, you know, one of the quotes I end interviews or anything with, I always tell people, and it's a quote I live by. I say, you know, you make a living by what you get, but you make a life by what you give. And I heard Quincy Jones say that when I was in college. I got tickets to go see him speak somewhere, and he ended his keynote speech with that phrase. And literally for almost the last 10 years, I've been like using that as like a personal mantra. So I met him, and I just remember the moment that stands out the most is Quincy, after we finished doing the radio stuff, he was like, hey, do you guys want to have dinner with me? So I'm like, are you kidding me? So we go upstairs. He has a cook come and bring us salmon and everything you want, dessert, the whole nine, the whole shebang. I'm sitting there and Quincy's actually talking to me, engaging me in conversation. Now, mind you, I got a gazillion questions I want to ask this dude, but he's asking me questions like, you know, what's your background? What kind of music you into? Like, you know what I mean? Just any and everything you can think of. And I actually had to apologize to him because I was sitting there the whole time just like eyes like stargazing. And I said, Quincy, or he told me to call him Q. He was like, I said, Q? I said, I apologize, man. Like, you don't understand. This is like a dream come true for me. Like, because it literally was. I never imagined myself sitting in Quincy Jones' house. Like, he's right here, I'm right here. Chilling, hanging out. Like, not just doing official stuff. I'm talking about just kicking it, hanging out. We watched a movie in his personal, like, movie theater. Crazy stuff, man. Like, stuff that people, it just doesn't happen to anybody. So for that, I'm forever grateful. And that will be my number one radio highlight personally. And, you know, before I go, one thing I want to let you guys know is that radio is a lot of smoke and mirrors, man. So, you know, don't believe the hype. Particularly the biggest thing they always get people with is when they say, yo, be the 18th caller or whatever caller and win these tickets. Complete bullshit. Take it firsthand. I had an experience when I was an interning for a guy you all may know. He's a pretty famous radio and video host. His name is Tigger, Big Tigger. Interning for him 10 years ago. I remember fielding calls for the 18th caller. They were giving away tickets. And what I come to find out was that they don't want the 18th caller. They basically want the person who will sell their soul for these tickets and sound like they kill their firstborn for some tickets to go see an artist perform, which is hilarious to me. And yeah, I just always remember like leaving that day after that experience when I took the 18th caller and I was told not to let that person know they were supposed to be the one winning the tickets. Actually, they wanted me to find someone who, like I said, literally sounded like they would sell their effing soul for some tickets. And I remember leaving that day and was just like my whole view of radio completely shot. It really left a real sour taste in my mouth. So there you go, y'all. Week 2, Underground Chronicles. I hope you enjoyed my blabbering for 10 minutes about radio and all that stuff. And I look forward to talking to you guys next week where the focus will be audio engineering and some of the cool things I've been able to do through that. All right, y'all. K-Murdock here. Till next time. Peace.